Before you scroll, pause for 1 second and feel this. Someone who loves you more deeply than they have ever admitted is keeping their distance on purpose, and that distance is not empty. It is full of conflict, memory, fear, and feelings they cannot control. You may have asked yourself again and again why they went quiet, why they stepped back, why their energy still lingers even when their presence does not. This is why. Not because the bond meant nothing, not because you imagined it, not because they forgot. They stepped away because what they felt became too strong to carry in the shape they were used to living in. Stay with this, because what you are about to hear may explain the silence you have been trying to decode for so long. Some people run when they do not care, but some people run because they care so much that it shakes everything inside them. And if this message found you at the exact moment you needed it, there is a reason. Your heart has already sensed the truth before your mind could name it. There is someone tied to your story, maybe from the past, maybe still close in spirit, who feels your absence like a hidden ache. They may say nothing, they may show little, but inside, the feeling remains alive, restless, and impossible to fully bury. Listen closely, because the deeper truth is only starting to unfold. You touched something in them that had been asleep for years. That is the part no one talks about. You did not simply enter their life like another passing face. You reached the locked room. You stirred old hope, old fear, old longing, and old wounds they had kept covered for a very long time. Being near you did not feel casual to them. It felt intense, pure, beautiful, and that scared them more than they were ready to admit. When two people truly affect each other, something changes. Masks slip. Old protections crack. Hidden parts rise to the surface. That is what happened here. You became a mirror without trying. In your presence, they saw what they wanted, what they lacked, what they feared losing, and what they still needed to heal. That kind of connection is not easy for a guarded heart. It is powerful, and power like that can feel dangerous to someone who has spent years surviving by staying closed. So if they pulled back, do not rush to call it indifference. For them, closeness felt like standing at the edge of a life-changing moment with no guarantee of safety below. They felt exposed. They felt seen. And for someone who learned early that vulnerability leads to pain, being fully seen can feel almost unbearable. Keep listening, because their distance says more than their silence ever could. The truth is, loving you did not feel light to them. It felt real. Too real. It carried weight. It asked for honesty. It asked for presence. It asked for a version of them they were not yet sure they could become. So instead of stepping forward, they froze. Instead of speaking clearly, they hid behind space, timing, confusion, and the hope that maybe distance would calm what was happening inside. But it did not. It only made the feeling louder in private. They may look composed from the outside. They may act normal. They may even pretend they moved on. But underneath that surface is a person replaying moments, remembering your voice, your energy, the calm they felt with you, and the way you made life feel more honest. Silence became their shield, but it never became their peace. They worry they are not healed enough. They worry they would bring disorder into something rare. They worry they would fail you, disappoint you, or damage what they secretly value most. That is why their distance can feel so confusing. It looks cold, but inside it is tied to fear, shame, and a deep belief that you deserve someone stronger, steadier, more complete. They do not stay away because the connection is weak. They stay away because it became so meaningful that they could no longer treat it lightly, and that inner pressure has been growing, not fading, with every passing day. They carry a contradiction inside them every day. They want to come closer, and at the same time they want to protect themselves from the risk of being known that deeply. They miss you, but they also fear what your presence awakens in them. They think of reaching out, then stop. They imagine speaking, then delete the words. They feel pulled toward you, then retreat into old habits. This battle is exhausting, and most of it happens in silence where no one else can see it. There are nights when they lie awake and rehearse conversations they never send. There are moments when your name appears in their thoughts without warning. There are seconds when they pick up the phone, stare at the screen, and put it back down, because fear speaks louder than longing. They are not as untouched as they seem, not even close. In quiet moments, they wonder if your heart still holds any space for them. They wonder if you still feel the bond beneath the silence. They wonder if too much time has passed. That question haunts them. What if they waited too long? What if you finally closed the door? What if the love they avoided is the very thing they cannot replace? Stay with me, because this is where the story deepens. Their distance has not freed them from the connection. It has forced them to sit inside it, feel it, and face the truth they kept trying to outrun. What makes this harder is that they learned the wrong lessons about love long before you arrived. Somewhere in their life, they connected love with pain, dependence with weakness, honesty with danger, and emotional openness with future loss. So they built walls, thick ones, quiet ones, careful ones. Those walls helped them survive, but they also kept them numb. Then you came in, and without force, without drama, without even trying, you made those walls feel useless. Around you, they felt more open than they knew how to manage, more human, more visible, more alive. That should have felt beautiful. Part of them knew it was, but another part panicked because they had no control over how deeply you affected them. They were not prepared for how safe and exposed they could feel at the same time. They were not prepared for the calm of your presence or the storm of your absence. That is why they disappeared in ways that made no sense on the surface. They were trying to rebuild old defenses around a heart that had already chosen differently. But no matter how much they tried to go back to who they were before, something had changed. You had already shifted their inner world. And once a person is touched at that depth, pretending nothing happened becomes its own kind of pain. That pain has been teaching them slowly, every day, that numbness is not strength and distance is not healing. So now they are in a season of inner conflict, and it is not gentle. Being apart from you has become a mirror they cannot escape. Without the usual distractions, they have started seeing themselves more clearly. They see the fear, they see the habits, they see the pride, the shutdown, the running, the silence, the old wounds they never dealt with. And what used to feel like self-protection is starting to look like self-sabotage. This is important, so hear it fully. Distance did not solve their feelings, it revealed them. Time did not weaken the bond. It exposed how real it was. Every day away from you has shown them what your presence meant, what your absence changed, and how empty their so-called safety really feels. They are beginning to understand that the deeper risk was never loving you. The deeper risk was losing something rare because fear kept making choices for them. That realization changes people, slowly at first, then all at once. They are learning that waiting until they feel perfect is another way of hiding. Waiting until life becomes easier is another delay. Waiting until fear disappears is a trap, because fear rarely leaves before courage arrives. And courage is not comfort. It is movement despite discomfort. If you are still listening, then you already know this kind of bond does not vanish just because someone went quiet. Some stories keep living under the surface until truth becomes impossible to avoid. There are moments when they feel your absence like a physical thing, not just as memory, but as lack, as missing warmth, as missing ease, as missing the one place where they did not have to perform. You became home in a way they did not expect, and that is one of the hardest truths for them to admit. With you, they felt seen beyond their words. They felt understood without long explanations. They felt the strange peace of not having to pretend. That kind of connection is rare, and people who are not used to it often do not know how to receive it when it appears. Instead of trusting it, they question it. Instead of holding it, they step back from it. Instead of choosing it, they test it until it hurts. That is what has happened here. Yet even now, they cannot fully walk away from what they felt. They search for you in small ways, in memories, in old words, in songs, in quiet hours, in random moments when life briefly stops making noise. They compare others to you and feel the difference immediately. They try to stay busy, but the truth keeps returning. They try to silence the connection, but it keeps speaking in the spaces between their thoughts. And the more they fight it, the more obvious it becomes that their heart has not moved on. Watch this closely, because this is the turning point. A person can resist love for only so long before the pain of resistance becomes heavier than the fear of surrender. They are nearing that point now, the point where staying the same hurts more than changing, the point where silence becomes too heavy to carry, the point where distance stops feeling safe and starts feeling like loss. This shift does not always happen loudly. Sometimes it builds in secret, through sleepless nights, through regret, through missed chances that begin to feel unbearable, through the growing understanding that life does not pause forever while they sort themselves out. They have started to feel the cost of waiting, the cost of pride, the cost of running from what mattered most. Every unsent message adds weight. Every day of pretending adds pressure. Every excuse sounds weaker than it used to. And somewhere inside, they know the truth now. If they keep choosing fear, they may lose something they will never be able to replace. That awareness is waking them up. Not perfectly, not all at once, but truly. They are beginning to see that real love is not asking them to arrive flawless. It is asking them to arrive honest. It is asking them to stop hiding behind delay and step into the uncertainty with an open heart. That is terrifying for them, yes, but it is also becoming necessary. Keep listening, because the return does not begin when fear disappears. It begins when truth matters more than fear, and that moment is getting closer with every quiet day that passes. In private, they have already started practicing the return, maybe not with action yet, but in thought, in imagination, in those late-night moments when the world is silent and denial gets weaker. They picture what they would say, they replay apologies, they imagine admitting that they were not ready, that they pulled back, that they never stopped caring, that the silence was never the full truth. They picture standing in front of you without the mask, without the distance, without the old role they kept playing. That vision both comforts and terrifies them. Comfort because it feels real. Terror because once they speak honestly, there is no going back to emotional hiding. They know that one true conversation could change everything. They know one honest step toward you could undo years of avoidance. That is why they hesitate. But hesitation is not the end of the story. It is the trembling before movement. It is the breath before the leap. And what pushes them now is not fantasy. It is the growing pain of separation. They thought time would help them forget. Instead, time has sharpened the meaning of what they lost. They thought distance would protect them. Instead, it stripped away distractions and forced them to face their own heart. They are beginning to understand something simple and powerful. Silence never protected love. It only starved it. And the longer they sit with that truth, the more likely it becomes that they will stop choosing the empty comfort of hiding and start choosing the difficult honesty of return. You should also know this. Their healing is not clean. It is uneven. Some days they feel brave. Some days they collapse back into old fear. Some days they are certain they should reach out. Other days they convince themselves it is too late. But even with that back and forth, the direction inside them is changing. They are no longer only running. They are reflecting. They are remembering. They are questioning the beliefs that kept them stuck. They are starting to see that what they once called strength was often just emotional shutdown dressed in calm language. They are seeing that isolating themselves did not make them wiser, it made them lonelier. It made them disconnected from the very thing their soul kept asking for. And as this understanding grows, so does their courage. Slowly, quietly, piece by piece. They are letting old patterns break. They are facing the parts of themselves they used to avoid. They are learning that love does not require them to be perfect before they show up. It asks for truth, for softness, for responsibility, for presence. That lesson is changing them from the inside out. So if nothing seems to be happening on the surface, do not assume nothing is moving. Some of the biggest changes happen in silence before they ever appear in action. And if this message is speaking to your heart, stay until the end, because the final shape of this story is not distance. It is awakening, it is honesty, it is the moment a guarded person realizes they can no longer live half alive. They think of the details more than you know. The sound of your laugh, the tone of your voice when you were calm, the way your presence softened something restless inside them, the relief of being around someone who did not demand a performance. They remember the unfinished talks, the emotions left hanging, the times they almost told the truth and backed away at the last second. These memories do not leave them. They return in waves, sometimes gently, sometimes with force. And each return makes it harder for them to keep pretending the bond was ordinary. It was not ordinary. It changed them. It showed them another way of being. It made them feel both hope and panic because deep down they knew this was not the kind of connection they could control with distance or logic. That is why they still feel you. That is why your absence still pulls at them. That is why even their attempts to move on feel thin and unconvincing. What they had with you touched a deeper layer than surface attraction or passing emotion. It reached identity. It reached longing. It reached the parts of them that had almost given up on being fully met by another person. Once that kind of recognition happens, it does not simply fade because someone decided to stay quiet. It waits, it builds, it asks to be faced. And right now, whether they say it or not, they are feeling the pressure of that truth more than ever before. Their heart is getting louder. Their excuses are getting weaker. And that imbalance cannot last forever. Sooner or later, everyone reaches a point where the cost of hiding becomes impossible to ignore. They are reaching that point now. The safe distance that once felt manageable has started to feel like a slow loss of their own life force. They are tired of the what-ifs, tired of watching from afar, tired of carrying feelings they never gave language to, tired of wondering whether you still remember, still care, still feel the thread between you. They are beginning to see that every time they silence their truth, they betray themselves a little more. Every time they choose fear over honesty, the pain returns sharper. Every time they deny what they feel, they move further from the person they are trying to become. That is why the return grows more possible now. Not because everything is suddenly easy, but because remaining absent is no longer emotionally sustainable. They have felt enough hollow mornings and long nights to know this cannot continue forever. They are learning that real change begins when a person stops asking, "What keeps me safe?" and starts asking, "What is true?" And the truth here is simple, even if it took them a long time to reach it. They never stopped loving you. The feeling did not disappear. It deepened in silence. It matured in pain. It clarified through absence. And now it is asking them for the one thing they kept postponing. Action, real action, honest action, brave action. The kind that opens doors once fear has kept them locked too long. So, if your heart has felt them from far away, if you have sensed unfinished energy in the silence, if part of you kept knowing there was more beneath the surface, you were not wrong. Their retreat was never the full story. It was only the stage before the turning. They needed to face themselves. They needed to see what fear had been doing to their life. They needed to understand that love this deep does not disappear just because someone lacks the courage to hold it right away. And now they are getting closer to that courage, closer to saying what was left unsaid, closer to breaking the pattern, closer to choosing truth over hiding. When they come forward, it may not look polished. It may not sound perfect. It may tremble. It may carry regret. But it will be real, and real is what matters. Real is what lasts. Real is what changes the future. Because in the end, the bond did not weaken during the silence. It transformed, it forced growth, it stripped illusions. It asked both of you to face what was genuine, and the moment is coming when they will no longer be able to stay at a distance from what their soul keeps calling home. When that moment arrives, it will not be half-hearted. It will not be casual. It will be the release of everything they held back for too long. And if you have stayed with this message to the very last line, then you already know. Some love stories pause in silence, but the deepest ones do not end there.